Hello and welcome to Tech Nerds, but not really. My name's Joshua Karish, and with me tonight is
Matt
Matt.
Rothman. Hey, nice to meet you guys, or nice to be on the podcast again. I actually know you, so it's actually not nice to meet you. But hey, I'm happy to be here. Tech nerds, but not really. And my name's Matt Rothman. I've been in the tech space for 20 years at this point. We worked together at a Salesforce ISV way back when, and excited to talk about software as a commodity today. But I'd like to introduce our friend Jake.
Hey guys, Jake Arts. Been in the tech space. I'm a new college graduate. I just graduated college just a couple of years ago, something like that. And yeah, we are going to talk today about technology as a commodity. But before we get into all that, I think we really need to get an understanding of what a commodity is, right? Because I think we use the term commodities. There's a commodities exchange, and there's but really, what is it? What is a commodity, right? So when I think about a commodity in absentia of technology, just a commodity, you got to think about things that are widely available, largely interchangeable, and products that are competing on price, not on their uniqueness, right? And so you think about electricity, right? There's a couple of different electricity providers in our area. Water is another one. Think about the number of bottled water companies out there. Water is a commodity. And then you think about pork belly is a commodity, and we'll get to that towards the end of the segment. So the question is technology a commodity? And when I think about technology as a commodity, you really in my mind, it breaks down into two areas, right? There's the very specialized technological solutions that are very industry specific. They're not widely used. They may even be homegrown solutions, right? So those are not commoditized technology or commoditized software solutions. So then, where would you think of technology as a commodity? Well, think about this. I can think of Dropbox, Google Drive, iCloud, OneDrive. These are all applications that basically do the same thing, right? So what are they competing on? Are they competing on how well they store your files? Not really, right? They're competing on price, right? And so they're looking at, they may have slight different variations of functionality between those four platforms, but ultimately it's they store files, and it's what's the most comprehensive for the platforms that you're leveraging, and what's the cheapest alternative. So I'll pause there.
Thank you for that, Jake. And
Sure.
and it's interesting, in the business world, a lot of people like, oh yeah, we're just like someone I know has a recruiting business, and hey, like we're just a commodity, or XYZ, right? And it kind of made me think about software and how it's grown and developed and matured since we've all been in the tech industry, right? When I got into the tech industry, there were the big players, the Microsofts, the Oracle, the Salesforce, maybe like accounting, you had like a Great Plains or whatever it was. Like you had the big players. Oh, you're in the mid market, you have to go with this software. You're in enterprise, you have to have Salesforce for your CRM or whatever it might be. But now we're at a point, here we are in 2025, where there are lots of new software applications that are being used in the enterprise level that were considered startups, in the last 5 to 10 years. And, it kind of makes me think of a story when I was working for a Salesforce partner several years ago, and we had an opportunity, and it just by coincidence is this guy that I went to college with was like one of the decision makers at this organization. He was kind of telling me, oh yeah, hey, we use Salesforce for the sales team, lead management, opportunity management, things like that. But then, oh yeah, for our service team, they use Zoho. So we're going to need to build an integration between the two systems, right? And I kind of was thinking to myself, right, where I know Zoho has CRM and sales capabilities there. And I kind of went to my friend, even though it was going to hurt my business, I was like, hey, like, have you ever just thought about using Zoho for everything or Salesforce, and just like things like that in a sense, like, is does it matter to have these two separate applications and put out this expense to connect the two systems, right? And that just kind of made me think. And then, if you look at Josh and his organization, Dynamic Specialties Group, he's not 100% focused on Salesforce. He also works with HubSpot. So Josh, talk about that and how you as a Salesforce professional all of a sudden became a HubSpot professional too.
Well, so, it used to be getting the right software was the key. Once you had the right software, you were in and you were taken care of. But now there's so many right softwares that can do the job, right? Sure, Zoho, HubSpot, and Salesforce are very different in their features, right? Some Salesforce absolutely has the enterprise level features that you would need for a highly custom org, where Zoho may not make it there, and HubSpot's growing in between. It used to be, small business only, but it's getting quite capable and similar to Salesforce in many of its features. And so it's not about getting the right software as much now as it is about using that software the right way. And that's where a company like Dynamic Specialties Group really continues to maintain its values, because we're a trusted advisor that provides the service of implementing that software. So we accidentally ended up in the niche of resurrecting failed implementations after, one, two, three failed partner relationships. And what we found is many times clients had the right software in place, but they didn't understand their process well enough to automate it and use the software effectively. And so while they had the right tool, they didn't have the capability to use it appropriately. And so that's where we were capable of helping them. And ourselves, we saw that as well, right? We were originally a Salesforce, we were completely on Salesforce. And then we started to use HubSpot for our marketing, and we realized that HubSpot has many of the same capabilities, not some of the higher end features, but we didn't need those right now. And so HubSpot made more sense because we could integrate more of our systems into it at a reasonable price point and use it more effectively. We were able to use more of the features now rather than potentially use them later. So we made the choice to transition to HubSpot, and it's been good for us. There'll become a point in the future where Salesforce will likely become the appropriate thing for us as we grow.
Yeah, no, and it's funny, like, yes, Salesforce offers different things than a HubSpot, and then, different things from a Zoho or a Monday.com or whatever application is out there. But at the end of the day, isn't software just software? And it's how the organization adopts it, leverages it, uses it. And in our last podcast, I talked about, our builder, the builder that I'm working with and the processes and all that stuff. Is when I first met this builder, they were using Zoom. Okay, great. We were using Zoom, have conferences over Zoom. And then next thing you know, a month or two later, we're using Google Meet. All right. And like some people, oh, Zoom's the best, Google Meet's the worst. But at the end of the day, they're doing the same thing. They're providing a online virtual, conference, whatever it is. So this just kind of, there's so much more software out there, and then there's these specific industry solutions. And then Salesforce is like, wow, there's all these great industry solutions. We should make industry solutions with Health Cloud and Manufacturing Cloud and Finance Cloud and all these different things. So, Jake, you did a great job kind of talking about what a commodity is. Now, I'm curious as to, we know in the tech space and in software, there are software applications like the ones we've been talking about that are kind of a commodity, but then there's like specific ones that aren't a commodity, like maybe like a custom built solution. Maybe you want to take a second and talk about what software is a commodity and what software might not be a commodity.
So yeah, so let's think for a second, right? If you're a when as we were preparing for this conversation, we were talking about a tractor company that leverages a tool to make sure your tractors are working properly, or you could think about like a television studio that has a very specific editing bay, right? There are software applications out there that are not commoditized because they are niche solutions that fit a very specific industry. I mean, you could go as far as thinking about like a banking application, right? How a bank manages their deposits and withdrawals, things like that, right? These are not commoditized applications because these applications are specific. They fill a very specific need, and there's not 20, 30, 40, 100 players in the market space that are doing that, it's very, very specific, right? Those are not commoditized. That's not commoditized software. But then let's talk about, I mentioned the file storage applications. We've talked about Salesforce. We've talked about, the Google Meet versus Zoom conversation, and these are commoditized applications, right? Well, so what's the value add, right? Why would a company decide to leverage Google Meet over Zoom, or Zoom over Teams, or Salesforce over Zoho, or HubSpot over Monday? Like, what is the difference there, right? And this really comes down to, as Matt stated, how you're leveraging the application, and but it's not just that base functionality anymore. It's the base functionality integrated with your larger stack. And let me use the Google Meet and Zoom as an example for a second, right? When we think about Google Meet, what does Google Meet do? Well, Google Meet, I pull up Google Meet, and a couple people get on a call, and we can screen share. We can see each other if we turn on cameras. We can talk to each other. That's great. So can Zoom, WebEx, Teams, Slack. I mean, all of these tools can do the same thing, right? So what's the difference? Well, the difference in Google Meet is that the Google Meet application is embedded within my Google Suite, right? My Google Mail, my calendar, my Google Drive, like all of these things come together in one application. So when I send out a Google Meet, when I send out a calendar invite, it automatically adds the Google Meet into all of my meetings. And when I have Google Gemini take notes on my meetings, then I get an email after the meeting is over with the Google Drive link of the meetings, of the notes that the AI took in my meeting. Right, there's the value add. Take Zoom for another as a different example. Right, if I work in a space where I've got lots of conference rooms and offices and desks. I mean, think about pre 2020 when everybody actually used to go to the office more often. You know, I would have my Zoom on my. I could have my Zoom phone number on my desk. I could have it on my cell phone. I could have it on my computer, and I could have it in conference rooms. And there was that sort of scalable functionality. So, what works better for your business? Does it make sense for you to have a bunch of conference rooms where you're connected via Zoom, or does it make sense for you to be able to have the capabilities to have your meeting notes dropped right into your Drive, right? That's the difference. And those are very specific examples, but you can expand that. Think about your CRM application. How many CRM applications do a email to case or email to support process, right? They all do, right? So what is the difference between HubSpot and Salesforce? Well, I mean, Josh, what's the difference between HubSpot and Salesforce, and how are these commoditized applications competing with each other?
You know, yeah, that's a big question. and and it depends. The way we gauge what's a good fit for the business is a lot of times about where they're at in the stage of business, right? Are they transitioning fresh off of Excel straight into their first CRM? The complexity matters. The level of effort to implement matters. And so HubSpot is a simpler system that is usually easier to maintain by the end user, right? By the company that has it. It doesn't require as much specialty upkeep as, say, Salesforce does. Salesforce, especially when you get into customization, you need to maintain that over the long term. You can't just set it and forget it. And so when we're talking to clients about what might be the right CRM for them to go for, we point out that all CRMs in essence do the same thing. You're sending emails, you're marketing, you're tracking engagement, and you're trying to find the right time to provide your sale opportunity when the client's ready to buy that. That's the whole purpose of our CRM. It boiled down to the essence, and then everything else after that's really just icing on the cake, right? And so trying to find the CRM that does just what they need, that's future proof enough that they're not going to be wasting money in a rebuild, and then matches their budgets, I think is the best way to pick it out. And rarely in your first transition into a CRM do you need the highly complex aspects that Salesforce can bring to bear. I see Salesforce as a bit more of a mature step when it comes to CRMs, because it's robust. You have to put the time into understanding it. You have to put the time into using it, and you have to put the time into upkeep.
Yeah,
But I
that's
guess the same
interesting.
same
No,
said for HubSpot too. So I mean, frankly,
sorry for interrupting you there,
yeah,
Josh.
you're
And
fine.
one of the things that you talked about with HubSpot that really kind of just intrigued me was like, you're like, I run my website off of it, and I run the and just kind of lead management, right? Like we're Salesforce consultants here, so I always have kind of my sales hat on, really, when it comes to implementing Salesforce or software for my customers, right? And then like, oh, hey, the customer has this website, this front end, and we got to get that data into Salesforce and so on. And then you start telling me about HubSpot and how you have your website hosted on, and it's just like, it just makes the stack simpler. But
It really does.
and are there other CRMs that probably have that sort of thing? I'm sure there are, but it's just like, as we learn about these different applications, you're like, oh, well, Salesforce is great for this, and HubSpot's great for this, and then oh, ServiceNow is great for that, and here it just kind of muddles the field, right? And it kind of brings me back to what I said earlier. I'm like, it's just software. It's just a kind of a piece of software here, and one person can say their software is better than that person's software, and so on. At the end of the day, it all works, but how you use it, how you implement it, things like that kind of play into it. But um, your HubSpot and all these other things kind of got us to this point where we're talking about it right now.
You know, sorry, can I
Go
jump
ahead,
in?
Jake. Yeah,
Thanks, Jake.
please.
All right. So one of the things that we keep dancing around a little bit, and as I'm sort of like thinking about this, I'm thinking about like my career trajectory in tech, right? And I started out in the very early stages of my career, implementing ERP applications that were sort of configurable, but if you wanted to do any significant work, it all had to be custom development. Leverage their UI, but it was basically all custom development if you want to do any major enhancements. Now, if you think about that for a second, that was many years ago, and now all of these applications that we're talking about are are applications that are based on a low code, no code point and click interface. And so that's something that I hadn't thought about initially until we started having this conversation. Is that not only is the software commoditized, right? But the fact that that for most of these commoditized applications, you don't really need a developer. Like you don't need a savvy team of people that have a degree in computer science to manage and enhance your application. Really, that at one point was a huge value add that has just become a commodity. If somebody today said we're going to stand up this piece of software, and sorry, I'm getting a note that says my internet connection is unstable. Sorry about that. We're going to stand up. We're going to go to market with this piece of software that's written all on JavaScript and Ruby on Rails, and if anybody wants to implement it, they're going to hire a developer. I would say, well, you may as well flush your money down the toilet because no one's going to buy it because you need to have a low code interface for people to leverage. And that's an interesting layer that's been layered on when we're thinking about commoditized application, is that it needs to be able to not only integrate with your business seamlessly, but it also needs to be able to be managed seamlessly without having a huge team of developers to manage the application.
So we were talking about the HubSpot piece, and it dawned on me that they really make it easy for their software to be a commodity in their purchasing because it's a la carte. So you can pick the hub you want to be in, the level you want to be at, and add the features that you need to some degree without ever having to go outside of their ecosystem, which we all know that in Salesforce, you get your Sales Cloud, your Service Cloud, you get your core functionality. But if you want gen signature hosting your website, anything beyond that, you're buying another application to do that, and those applications are robust and they do an excellent job, where what I have available to me in HubSpot is stripped down and a bit simpler, but it's as simple as I need it to be for this stage in business, so it makes sense not to have to go out and increase my tech stack. And I think that really excuse me, I think that really contributes to the commoditization, because it's like going to the grocery store. I want some apples, I want some steak today, and you get what you want and you pay for what you need until you need more, and you can go back and always pick up the next service. Yeah. And Jake, the low code interface is critical, right? Because HubSpot, I've been mucking around and they're just figuring it out for a year or so. And that would have cost us an awful lot if we would have had to pay a developer to figure it out for us, right? Where I can just spend hours figuring out the configuration, getting it set appropriately so that the tool is working for me in a fabulous manner. I get so much data because it's all in one spot.
Yeah,
It's
and
a good
it makes
observation.
me think, right? Like DC, we live in the Washington DC area, and I've lived in DC proper for a while, and it it has this for a while there pre-COVID, it really had this thriving like tech scene and these software incubators. And I remember a friend of mine worked for a company called Contactually. And I was like, tell me about it. Da, da, da. And like, as he was telling me about it, I'm like, so wait, it's a CRM? And he's like, yeah. And we put the contact and contact. And I'm just like, so it is this like low code CRM that you guys talked about. And the funny part about it is that like they attacked the vertical of real estate agents. And like that was kind of their niche in real estate. And then next thing you know, one of the large real estate companies, I think it was like Long and Foster, went ahead and like purchased them. But here's the commodity, right? Here is, okay, that's an incubator. Someone builds a software program that's just a CRM, just like any other CRM out there. But then, they come up with a go to market strategy to go after real estate companies and like, oh, that's our niche. We're a point industry solution for the real estate industry. When look, you're just a database and you turn it into a CRM and then you kind of sold it off to a real estate company, right? So like, here's these commodities. They're all at different levels, different revenues, different go to market strategies. But hey, it's like a database with a software on top of it, like a contact relationship management, CRM, whatever we want to call it. There it is. Like it's just another piece of software that could do something that another piece of software and another piece of software could. So here we are. And why do we buy it? Oh, it's focused on real estate, or oh, it was in my budget, or oh, another company that like us uses it, and so on. So we all have our reasons on why we're selecting certain pieces of software, but how different are they really from each other?
AI is a good differentiator right now because some of these platforms are using AI at a much better than others, right? Some are just giving you text prompts, and others are actually HubSpot's making recommendations on the next step in a deal based upon all of the information attached to the deal. It's fascinating, and again, it's a la carte. I can pay for a bucket of credits and use them up as I want to, and then come back and get some more later. But I think AI is a big differentiator for the time being. I think that it's going to change, of course, in short order as everybody catches up and gets on the wagon. But at the moment, I think it's a bit of a differentiator that people should consider in their purchasing of software because it's useful.
Good point, Josh. AI is this huge conversation piece right now. And Jake, I want you to kind of talk about AI and software as a commodity sort of thing and how AI can be that big differentiator that Josh just alluded to.
Well, and I'm not as familiar with HubSpot as I am with Salesforce, and certainly, and I'm also pretty familiar with Zoho. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting with an implementation that I actually did for Zoho about 5 years ago was they already had AI functionality baked into their application before AI was a huge thing. Like, I think AI has been around for a lot longer than people care to understand, but now today, it's much more ubiquitous. Well, when we were building this Zoho application in 2020, they had all of these. They had tools embedded within their application to determine, for their marketing suite, when's the best time to send somebody an email based off of their preferences, right? When was the time that you could get somebody to open and read emails based off of their experiences? When would be a better time for sales versus read? And then they even had embedded within their application a element with an AI element that you could engage with to say, what should I do next to build my application? flash forward 5 years now Agent Force is here on the Salesforce side, and Agent Force is admittedly a little bit more robust than the Zoho tool from 5 years ago, but still doing very similar things, right? You should send emails at this time because this is when you'll get better open rates. This is the ways things that you can do to help improve your application based on AI elements. And I think that it's really interesting to sort of see that progression. But no, but when we're talking about like AI as a commodity, right? Let's think about the AI tools that are available today, right? I mean, the landscape is very broad, right? But the big ones, the big players, the Chat GPTs, the Google Gemini's, the Microsoft Copilot. The list goes on. I have to mention Agent Force, even though I already did. The think about what ChatGPT, Gemini, and Microsoft Copilot do. Right? You put in a prompt, you get an answer. Right? Is one better than other? I think that's really debatable. Right? And I don't know the underlying engine for Gemini, but I'm pretty certain the underlying engine for Copilot is GPT, right? Is the same open AI application, because I think that Microsoft is one of the largest funders of open AI, right? Of the Chat GPT engine. So thinking about that, we've talked about software as a commodity, and AI is really kind of software, but it's a lot bigger than software. And already in this very new space, we're seeing AI as a
A good point. I hadn't thought about it as a standalone. I was thinking about it integrated, but yeah, you're spot on, Jake.
It's funny how AI is this new thing, but this new talking point, but we all know it's been out there for such a long time. And it's like now everyone kind of keeps talking about it. And look, like, eh, you know, AI being a commodity or software being a commodity, like whatever it is, I guess it really points to the use case or how you're using it or what you've done to potentially customize, that application.
But I think,
Absolutely.
but the tool, even if you customize the application for your own personal business needs, the tool as a commodity stays the same, right? It's if I leverage an AI application to do what I need for my business, that AI application itself is still a commodity in the market space, but my implementation of that AI tool is the different is the differentiator, right? And I think it's put upon the software vendors, the AI vendors, whatever, to say, okay, once you've integrated this application into your business, how do we make it so that your business, so that your use of the application grows with your business? But you can't do that without without uh, human touch, right? You can't just say, here's our AI tool. You set it up. It's running for your business. Great. Walk away. Right. To our conversation about process last time, you have to hone it. You have to tweak it. You have to look. You have to look into the details. And you need your software vendor or your AI vendor or whoever to say, okay, you're using it to do X. I wonder. First of all, I wonder if my other customers would be interested in using it to do X. But also, um, okay, you needed to do X. Maybe have you thought about Y and whatever Y is, right? And continue that relationship, because what I think software vendors will eventually find is that if they rest on their laurels and say, oh, we've got all these companies that are using our commoditized application, is that after a while they're gonna be like, oh well, Salesforce is getting too expensive. Let me start to leverage HubSpot. Now HubSpot's getting too expensive. Let me start to leverage Zoho. There's no difference between them. I can switch between them without any problem. It's just some development time, point and click development, mind you, and a data migration. Why would I stay tied to one vendor or the other? And it's up to the vendor to say, hey, this is why you should stay with us, because this is how we can help you grow your business and have that people touch.
Yeah, data migration's enough for me to stay with the vendor.
Yeah, but there are people out there that have made their entire careers off of data migration, and it's
They're
not.
weird. They're weird people. I don't
They
understand them.
are
I don't know why
weird
you'd
people.
subject yourself to that.
They are weird people.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
I'm
I don't
sorry.
know any of us in the tech industry, how normal we could be.
No,
But,
that's true.
That's fair. Yes, my worst projects have always been data migration.
No,
The first time
great.
I did one at Fontiva with you, Jake. Yeah, that was one of my first and worst data migrations ever. It was just everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. It was just it was hard. That's when I learned to be cautious about data migrations.
I gotta tell you, it's funny. This is a bit of a side story, but I did a migration. Um, I migrated a bunch of data from one Salesforce instance to another Salesforce instance, and I exported everything into Excel and CSV files. And you know how when in Excel, when the column is not wide enough, you get a bunch of X's. Well, in my P brain and not being a data migration expert, I thought, oh well, if I expand this, then I'll see all the values, so it'll be fine. So I don't need to expand it. I'm just going to load the data. And I loaded the data, and what was put in all of the fields? X, 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 X. It was awful. The client was so angry. We solved it, but I was like, wait, what is going on here? Why are all these large text fields coming up with all X's? Like, oh, because I didn't expand the columns in Excel. Data migration is the worst. I'm so glad that there are other people that do that for us.
Oh my. Yeah. Yeah. Always keep originals.
Oh yeah,
So much so that we have a Slack channel message. Anytime that the word deployment or data migration comes up, it automatically says, "Did you make a copy of the originals and put them in a different file? Have you done your backups yet?"
nice, nice. I like
Oh
that.
boy, it's the simple stuff that'll get you and save you because an original, well, I've relied on that more than once. So,
Sure, I'm sure.
but we're getting far afield.
So guys. I think we're about at time here. I want to talk about one more commodity, if I may.
Of
And
course.
You
I,
may.
I mentioned it at the top of the call, and told everyone we would circle back to it. What the commodity I mentioned was pork belly, right? And pork belly is a commodity. It's traded on the commodities exchange in Chicago, and it's a very appropriate commodity for us to talk about right now because it is May. It's May 16th, and we're in the middle of National Barbecue Month. So very exciting times here at the K-Town PICU. We are gearing up. I've done let's see, two team cooks this month already, four catering events. I've got one competition this month, and then four more for the rest of the year. We've got some exciting stuff going on with the K Town Pit Q. I'm so excited that this business is finally getting some steam. A lot of the requests we're getting are from schools saying, can you do this for us at cost? But that's okay. We're doing what we love. Eventually, we'll start making some money. So, but we are having a great time. So, anybody that likes, delicious chicken, pork, and beef products, you know where to find me, k10pq.com.
What a
That's my
great
shameless,
sponsor. Of
that's my
all the
shame.
sponsors we could have, a barbecue sponsor is my favorite. So
Yeah, I'm on
very
board.
exciting.
Nice, nice, cool.
All right, guys. Well, I think we've reached a natural conclusion to this episode. So thank you for your time this evening. It's always a pleasure to chat it out with you guys, and we'll see you next time.
It's a good
You
time. Thanks,
got it.
guys. We'll talk soon.
Be
Thanks,
well.
team.
Bye.
Bye.